Hi, today's topic is steroids. And really, I only have one thing to say about steroids. Just don't do it. There is absolutely no point at putting your health at risk simply because you think you need steroids to get ripped and build a muscular body. You don't. You don't need them at all. Don't use them. Okay? Now, if you don't already know, I am a clean lifter. What does that mean? That means I don't use steroids. As a matter of fact, I rarely use any supplements. And when I say that, I mean I use virtually no supplements. But we'll talk about supplements in another video. I really am concerned with the amount of misinformation there is out there about steroids. Sure, today's bodybuilders are huge and they're ripped and they're cut, but are they really that pleasing to look at? What price have they paid for pumping their body full of steroids? Actually, they look like a bunch of over-muscled gorillas, you know. And I have to say that I think that the bodybuilders back in the day, back in the Muscle Beach days, back in the early 40s, 50s, 60s, and even into part of the 70s, had a much better symmetrical, very nice muscular look, and they were ripped and cut than today's bodybuilders do. The quest for muscle and being Mr. Universe or Mr. World or Mr. Bodybuilder USA has gotten to the point where if you're not bigger, you're not the best. But what price do you pay? What price do you pay? One, steroids are illegal. And you have to purchase them off the black market most times, or you can get them in some seedy muscle building magazine or off the internet. But the problem with that is that you don't really know what you're getting. You have no idea what the concentration of the steroid is that you're going to swallow, drink, or inject. So, you know, just stay away from that. There's no point in getting yourself in legal trouble by purchasing black market steroids. Now, even if you can get legal steroids, you're going to have a hard time finding a doctor that will prescribe them and monitor you, because unless they're a quack or a shady physician trying to make some money under the table, most doctors are not going to agree to putting you on steroids just because you want to gain muscle. You don't need steroids to gain muscle and get that Adonis-like body. Okay? Now, this next picture is going to show you some of the harmful side effects of taking steroids. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would want to take those kind of risks with their health and with their body. Well, there you have it. Those are the side effects and the things that taking steroids will do to your body. So, like I said, just don't do it. Now, I mentioned a little earlier about the bodybuilders of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. All right? Did you know that bodybuilding goes back even further than that? Let me introduce you to a few of my inspirational heroes when it comes to weight training. The first one I want to introduce you to is Mr. Eugen Sandow. Now, he was one of the last and greatest of the strongmen. And I'm not talking about strongmen like the guys who pull trucks and, carry Atlas stones and that sort of thing. He was a strongman that used to perform with the circus. He was one of the sideshow acts. And later he got into performing on stage, like in vaudeville and things like that. Now, he got his start in the mid to late 1800s and carried through into the early 1900s. Now, when you look at the picture of Eugen Sandow, this is a guy who built his body on just pure weight training, good nutrition, and a healthy lifestyle. There were no such things as steroids or supplements in his era. So, take a good look at Eugen Sandow and you tell me what you think. Well, does that man have a body or what? Never used any supplements, never shot up with steroids, and this was a guy who could bend iron with his hands. He could twist horseshoes and just lift incredible amounts of weight. And he was probably the first posing bodybuilder, so to speak. There's actually a few old vintage early 1900 video clips of him. They're only about 30 or 40 seconds long, but I'll post those on our Facebook group page so you can take a look at him. The next person I want to introduce you to is the Iron Guru. If you're not familiar with the name, the Iron Guru, maybe you might know him as Vince Gironda, the controversial muscle training coach who worked with a lot of bodybuilders in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, clear up into the 90s. He was training bodybuilders, and he was training them cleanly. Vince believed that taking steroids was cheating, and I'd have to agree with him. Anybody who takes steroids is a cheater. They're looking for the easy way out. So, here's a picture of Vince Gironda. What do you think? This man didn't use steroids either, and he did use supplements, but not the kind of supplements that you think of in today's bodybuilding and weightlifting world. He used things like liver supplements and a whole bunch of other weird things that were healthy and weren't packed with a bunch of other additives. Now, Vince was quite a great man in his day, but people didn't recognize it. We are just now looking back at Vince Gironda's methods and discovering that he was about 50 years ahead of his time when it came to bodybuilding. He trained people like Reg Park, Steve Reeves. He even trained Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right? Vince Gironda turned out more Mr. Atlas and Mr. Universe winners than any other bodybuilding training coach. And he did it without the use of steroids. All right? Now, let's take a look at one of his guys that he trained, Steve Reeves. Not a lot of you probably know who Steve Reeves is, but you're probably more familiar with his son, Christopher Reeves, Superman, who unfortunately lost his life due to a serious accident that left him paralyzed. But anyway, Steve Reeves was once considered the Grecian ideal. He had the perfect body with perfect symmetry, and this man also did not use steroids. So the point I'm trying to get across to you is that if these guys back as early as the late 1800s all the way up through the mid-70s could build bodies like this, gain muscle mass, and get ripped, what's the point in using steroids? Yeah, it'll take you longer, and you'll have to work harder, but you'll be proud of yourself for doing it cleanly. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever to be taking steroids. And I can guarantee you that probably 85 to 90% of the guys you see in the muscle magazines who are telling you you need to use this certain type of workout or this certain supplement to look like me, they're on steroids. They may not admit it, but they are. So my question to you is, do you want to look like this? Or would you rather look like this? And take pride in knowing you did it yourself without the use of harmful steroids and unnecessary supplements.